Hey, it's Jan from FPC, and in this video, I want to show you how to create and execute simple measurement test sequence in FunTest. Our test setup consists of a multimeter to perform the measurements, a switching system to interface the multimeter with our device under test and our actual device under test, in this case, Arduino board. In the plugin window, you can see that all my devices, including switching system and a multimeter, are recognized in the device tab. Before we go ahead and create our test sequence, let's name our test points so it's easy to refer to them in our test sequence. To do that, we'll go into test station setting. And here is the same names as for the pins on my Arduino board. First will be ground, then pin 5 volts, 3v3, and then reset pin, and finally IO reference button. I will click save. And now we can go ahead and start developing our test sequence. So we'll go to a programmer, run debug session, select test project, and it will open up an empty test sequence where we can start developing our commands. We will go ahead and use the first command in parameter columns. Here we'll call our DMM and set a command to measure resistance. And now in the MX column, we will set the test points where we want to measure the values for the test step. So in this case, we will start measuring between ground and 5 test point. And if I now run the test, I see that the result is a really high number, which is expected because in this case, we're just checking that those pins are not shorted to the ground. And then I can go ahead and do it for the rest of the test points. So I can just drag these 3 more times. Do the same thing for the test points. And here I will just change the pin. So here we'll do our 3v3, our reset pin, and then finally our IO reference. And now if I run the rest of the test steps, I can see that all the resistance is the same, which is probably because the multimeter is out of range, which means that the resistance value is really high, and that's what we want. So now that we're able to gather the measurements for each test step, we want to create a passing filter criteria for our test so we can automatically see if the value that was measured passed or failed. For that, we will use the judge and target value column. So first we'll set our target value. And in this case, we just want to make sure that the pins are not shorted to the ground. So here we just set a 1 mega ohm, select units for user readability, and do the same thing for all 4 steps. And to create the passing filter criteria in the judge column, we'll use a spreadsheet formula. So in this case, we will use a function and say if the result is higher than target value, we want to display 0, which FunTest recognizes as the test step passed. And if not, we'll display 1. We can see that for all our test steps, that's true. So all the test steps so far that we executed passed. And now, since we confirm that none of the pins are shorted to the ground, we can go ahead, power up the device, and verify that it powered up correctly by reading the voltage on all our pins and making sure that it matches our specification. So to do that, we'll essentially follow the same test sequence. So we can just go ahead and copy our previous steps. But in this case, instead of resistance, we will measure voltage. We will change that for all 4 steps. And we'll go ahead and perform all of these one by one. And we see that we read voltage values. And then we'll follow the same process for creating pass and fail criteria. So let's say our target values for 5, 3.3, 4.5, and then 4.5. And in this case, the units are in volts. And here we just don't want to verify that it's higher than a certain value as we did in the resistance steps, but we want to make sure that it's within plus minus of the target value. So for that, we'll utilize the low and high limit columns where we can calculate, let's say we want to check if it's plus minus 10% from the target value. So we'll do 0.9 times the target value, 9%. Then we'll do the same thing for the high limit. And then we'll just drag these for all 4 test steps. And now in the judge column, we'll again use a spreadsheet formula. Now it's going to be slightly longer, where we want to make sure it meets 2 conditions. So it's within these 2 limits. So for that, we'll use if and we want to make sure that the result is higher than the low limit. And at the same time, it's lower than the high limit. And again, we'll display 1 if the conditions are met, and 1 if not. And then we'll drag this for the other 4 test steps as well. And now we have a test sequence that confirms that none of the pins are shorted. So it's good to power it up, and then verifies that the device powered up correctly. This example shows you how easy it is to perform a measurement sequence utilizing a test equipment, in this case, a multimeter and a switching system. Together with creating pass and flow criteria for each step using spreadsheet formulas, we can create any custom condition that fits your requirement. In the upcoming videos, we'll build on top of this test sequence and add more functionality such as interacting with the test operator, test reporting, and other features. If you're interested in learning more, visit our website and contact us to get started with Fun Test. Thanks.